Up next on Left, Right and Centre, a full reset of the relationship between India and the Maldives. After a year of being in doldrums, India and the Maldives appear to be back on track in their bilateral ties. President Mohamed Muizzu at the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan being greeted warmly by the President and Prime Minister on a visit that appears to have fixed the plummeting ties between the two countries. Earlier this year, 3 MPs from the Maldives had hit out at India on Twitter. One of the tweets targeted the Prime Minister personally. This at a time when Maldivian President Muizzu chose to visit Beijing, not Delhi, on his first state visit and signed on to a strategic partnership with China for free weaponry, a move that clearly upset Delhi. What followed was a large-scale boycott of the Maldives by Indian tourists, a move driven by Indian social media outrage, but that clearly appears to be changing now.
भारत ने सदैव मालदीव के लिए फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्डर की भूमिका निभाई है, चाहे मालदीव के लोगों के लिए एसेंशियल कमोडिटीज की जरूरत पूरा करना हो, प्राकृतिक आपदा के समय पीने का पानी उपलब्ध कराना हो, कोविड के समय वैक्सीन देने की बात हो, भारत ने हमेशा अपने पड़ोसी होने के दायित्व को निभाया है.
The Maldives needs India's economic heft and New Delhi is clearly obliged. There's been a rollover of $100 million treasury bill from the State Bank of India. In addition to this, there is a substantive currency swap agreement which is worth $400 million and 30 billion Indian rupees.
India is a key partner in the socio-economic and infrastructure development of the Maldives and has stood by the Maldives during our times of need. I would like to thank Prime Minister Modi, the government and people of India for the generous assistance and cooperation extended to the Maldives over the years, including the recent budgetary support in form of rollover of the T-bills.
Perhaps the biggest takeaway from the visit were the military outcomes. There'll be maritime and security cooperation. Indian military platforms may be stationed in the Maldives to assist Maldivian forces. Maritime radar systems will be provided to the Maldives. India will support the Maldives in hydrography missions. And the Maldivian Ministry of Defence, built with Indian assistance, will be inaugurated soon. India's primary concern is the growing military muscle of China in the Indian Ocean region. We've seen research vessels from China dock in Malé as well. New Delhi is absolutely clear. The Maldives cannot become too dependent on China. Vishnu Shom for NDTV. Well, joining us now, Ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. We're also joined by Ahmed Aid, a journalist at the Adadu. Thank you very much for being with us. And Aditya Godhara Shivamurthy, an Associate Fellow of Neighbourhood Studies at ORF. Thank you all very much for being with us. Ambassador Bhatia, do you believe that based on what you've seen today, the relationship between India and the Maldives is back on an even keel?
Yes, indeed. I believe so. I think we all have watched very clearly the evolution of this relationship in the past 12 months, as you very astutely reported just now. Last September onwards, things were really going downhill, and it looked that this crisis could prolong for a long time. But then slowly diplomatic efforts were unleashed, and they were executed very, very wisely. And then different signals began to come. So the central question here is the essential deal or arrangement that we now have with Maldives is that India will come forward and continue to help on the economic side, on the development cooperation side, on helping the financial remedies to be put in place. And Maldives, on the other hand, will be very, very conscious and alive to the security concerns of India. So it's a very clear balancing between their needs for our development cooperation and our need for their security partnership with India. And therefore, the central feature of the new partnership that is being developed is appropriately being called a comprehensive economic and maritime security partnership.
Ahmed Aid, the military part of it is particularly significant Maldives ships will be serviced to India. There is a provision of the Maldivian armed forces receiving Indian platforms as well. When President Muizzu came to power, it was on an anti-India plank. There were concerns about Indian military personnel on Maldivian soil. Do you believe that we've sort of turned that around, that that military relationship is back on an even footing?
After President Muizzu came to power, there were concerns about, even through the campaign, there were concerns about the Indian military presence in the Maldives. We had the whole India out movement, and after he came to power, there were high-level discussions between India and Maldives, which they agreed to send back 77 military personnel in Maldives. Instead, they brought back, actually, we have, even right now, we have 3 platforms that is operating in Maldives, and some civilians who are, as far as I know, are part of a company that is being led by your defense ministry. So I think it has been a part of deception throughout the 9 months as far as the military side is concerned.
Okay. Aditya, India's big concern in all of this has been the growing presence of China. Do you believe that we've been able to deal with that now, despite the close relationship that President Muizzu seems to have had with Beijing?
Look, I think Maldives and China continue to enjoy a good relationship, and there is no going back on that. I think Muizzu and his party historically have enjoyed a closer relationship with China, and I think that is still will continue to be the scenario. Before Muizzu came to India, when he was in China, he requested China first for debt restructuring. Well, China promised, it has not been able to deliver on it, and now that he is in India, he has requested the same for India. Look, when Muizzu was elected to power, he spoke to China, he spoke to Indian convoys. The same message was conveyed. But I think now that India proved to be the first responder, I think there is some lead that India has taken. Obviously, the symbolic gestures that India has continued to show, the patience that India has shown, has obviously put India at an advantage over China. But I would not definitely call that this has marked a U-turn in Maldives foreign policy, because a lot of Chinese loans are to be repaid. A lot of Chinese loans are to be serviced. Around 1.2, 1.3 billion of what is left of 7 billion that has to be repaid. So I think Muizzu will continue to have a good relationship with China. But what at least this visit shows, is the fact that he will continue to be sensitive to India's concerns. And now I think there is a growing trust and reliance on India, and perception of India being a more reliable partner than what China could be.
All right, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. That relationship is so very important, and hopefully it's back to where it should be.